hello, everyone. How are you? So good to see you on this Wednesday. I trust you are well. Let me invoke favor upon the whole audience this day. May favor greet you at every turn of your head this day, and may there be peace and prosperity seen in your life. So, Nancy and I have just been talking a little bit, got carried away here. So, I just want to welcome everyone that's tuning in. Hey, listen, this is going to be a topic that we need to talk about. It's one that is going to affect us all. Right before we get into our topic with our returning guest, Nancy Addison, how are you, my dear?
I'm good and so happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy that you're here because I can look out where Nancy is a complete opposite where I am. There's actually snowflakes out there, and she's living in the tropics. Anyway, we won't talk about that, but so good to see you again, Nancy. Thank you. So, folks, real quick, I haven't heard an update from Patrick. Many of you probably know that where I live is in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. And yesterday, our community, regrettably, has now made the ranks of yet another school shooting that resulted in a loss of a life of a student with 8 others injured. And you know, Nancy, you and I were talking about this prior to going on the air. I think the thing that there was a very heavy police presence, obviously, in our community. Where the shooting took place is less than a mile and a quarter from where we live. The shooter, we know there were 2. One was 18. He lives literally 4 blocks from where my house is. And there was which this is going to be very, when they break the news, to the rest of the nation, the second shooter or person involved was a female, thought to be 16. So we are now a part of that alumni. And the thing that moved me so much, Nancy, in this tragedy was this school is a charter school. It's called a STEM school, which means science, technology, engineering, mathematics. 1,800 students, and many of the children in my subdivision go there. When I saw the 6-year-olds coming out with their hands above their heads, we're living in a different world, Nancy.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. You and I grew up, you and I are the same age. And so for full disclosure, and, you know, when we were in kindergarten, first grade, it was learning the basics of what we call the cognitive process of learning what society is.
Yeah.
Yeah. These children today will be growing up where potential school is well, how should we say it's potentially a life-threatening situation.
Yeah, I mean, the elementary school I grew up in, you have to go in and sign in, and it's almost like it's a lockdown, and you can't, you know, even if you're a parent volunteering, you've got to sign in, you've got to get. It's totally different when we were in school.
Totally. You know, Nancy, you and I were talking because we're going to be talking about diabetes. This is, by all definition, I talked to my family doctor, this is an epidemic. It is, as she said, it's affecting virtually almost every patient coming through the door.
Right.
What are your thoughts on this? I think that it's a broad subject there. It's like you and I were talking. There's not one single cause, correct?
Right. I mean, we're complicated beings, and we live in a very complicated world. And so different things impact us. And so when you have a accumulation of different, you know, like toxins or artificial additives or chemicals or things that are changed in your food, then all of those affect the way our body is functioning. And so, so what we're going to talk about is just how some of those things affect us and what you can do to reverse that or protect yourself from some of these things in the environment or in your food.
Yeah. And speaking of the,
Sorry.
no, but speaking of the food, that seems to be, yeah, I mean, if you put it in a list, it seems to be one of the primary problems is the type of food, particularly Americans eat.
Oh, absolutely. And this is something I started learning about 33 years ago. And I was married to an environmental trial lawyer for 23 years. And he started getting companies that he worked for needing to comply with OSHA laws or EPA laws. And so we started doing environmental impact studies on farm runoff, air quality, electromagnetic fields, water qualities, things like that. And so I started learning about genetically modified food and also about glyphosate, which was starting to be used on, well, and it started quite a while ago, being used on many of the crops. And so
yeah, it's a herbicide, isn't it?
Glyphosate is what is in the Roundup Ready.
Roundup, yes, okay.
Which went out of patent in 2007. So now it's being manufactured worldwide to an enormous extent. But it's one of the biggest problems, I would say, with our food today, and particularly in the US, because they don't really have any what I would consider good laws to protect us from this toxicity. And it can do some very serious things. And I think it also is one of the leading contributors to diabetes, because diabetes has gone up 700% in the last 50 years. And it's, in fact, one of the reasons I wrote my book, Diabetes in Your Diet, was I have a friend in Dallas who's on the board of one of the largest medical companies in the country. And he said that it was one of the most serious problems they had, and that he wanted me to address that. And one of the things I've really found is that, they have shown that diabetes is reversible, and you just need to change the quality of your food and the quality of your home environment and try to get rid of the toxins. And also lifestyle. So, getting some exercise and sunshine.
Well, that's important. If we were just to stop on that topic alone, it becomes very problematic when you look at particularly, I guess they would call them Generation Z, the millennials. They, more than I think any particular demographic, have a sedentary lifestyle that for the most part is just exploding this.
Well, I think it started with television.
Well, no, I just disagree with you on that.
People started watching a lot of television. I know a lot of people my age watch a lot of television. And so they become the couch potatoes.
No, we've just been programmed longer.
Sitting at our computers. And in fact, yesterday I was working on some articles and I was like, I have to get up and go walking.
Drive you crazy, folks.
But, now they have those stand-up desks and things, so people.
Yeah. Well, one of the things the doctor was saying that when we look at the statistics, 700% over the last 50 years, one of the things that I think that the statistics are in a lag about is, again, the telltale signs of the younger generation. Adolescent diabetes is off the chart. I read a report that they think it's one of probably a contributor to many of the cancers that children are encountering more and more.
Right. So much of the way our body heals or is healthy is the way our cells communicate. So we work kind of like a symphony. Things work together. And the use of these pesticides and things on our food, it not only destroys the nutrients in the soil, but it also changes the nature of the food. So many of these foods are genetically modified, and so they will actually have certain viruses or proteins or even the glyphosate cut into the seed so that this plant is able to handle huge amounts of this chemical fertilizer and pesticide dumped on it. Now, what this means is that the glyphosate, and there's a Dr. Stephanie Seneff, Seneff, who is with MIT, and she had an undergraduate degree with biology and then minors in food and nutrition. And so she's been studying glyphosate extensively, and she has quite a few peer-reviewed public studies. And what she has found is that this glyphosate, and there's also a Dr. Zach Bush, who's also another medical doctor who's been researching glyphosate extensively. But what they found is this glyphosate mimics the complex amino acid glycine in our body, which is one of our more beautiful amino acids.
Yeah.
An essential amino acid. So that means our body's not able to make it. We have to get it from a food source. And so what this glyphosate does, if you're eating food that is grown conventionally, not organically, so if it's grown conventionally with chemical fertilizers and pesticides, which is what is normally glyphosate, then this glyphosate mimics glycine. So it goes in and it acts like it's glycine in your cells. Well, glycine in your cells in its normal healthy way is a very flexible, water-soluble, subtle, flexible protein. And what the glyphosate does is it mimics it, but it isn't subtle and it doesn't hold water. And in fact, it makes that protein very brittle. And your body kind of is like accepting it because it's mimicking it. But yet, as your body starts becoming ill because it is not working the way the real protein would act, the real complex amino acid would work. And so your body starts trying to heal it, and then it starts using a whole lot of energy trying to fix what it can't fix. And as people eat more and more of this toxic substance on their food, then they get overloaded with this toxin, and then the disease just starts to form. And so this is one of the problems. So the glyphosate, what it can do is it disrupts your gut bacteria. So it interferes with certain enzymes in your gut that protect you from toxins. And so what it does is it prevents your body from detoxifying. Right? And so then you get an overload of all of these pathogens. So you hear a lot of people with leaky gut. Well, it also opens up your gut so that so these toxins can get throughout your body. And so, the glyphosate, it just affects you in so many negative ways, other than just destroying the nutrients in the soil and in the food. And in fact, when it was first patented, it was patented as an antibiotic. So it kills everything. So, plants and bacteria, it shuts down the shikimate pathway, which is these three essential amino acids that we need. And these three essential amino acids are critical for our health and well-being. And the companies say, well, it's not going to hurt humans because it only kills it in the bacteria and in the plants. But yet we get these essential complex amino acids from the bacteria. And if the bacteria doesn't have it, then we don't have it. And some of these are like,
Yes.
and that can cause severe anxiety and depression and insomnia if you don't have it, or tyrosine. That's the same thing. It can cause anxiety and depression. And we see the highest rates of suicide in the world right now, and even with children.
Yeah, I tell you, my community, sadly, I was saddened to hear this. I think we've had 8 or 9 adolescent suicides.
Oh, and it's
It's
between ages of children like 9 and 14. I mean, it's just absolutely so sad. And then you add to that the overload of the synthetic estrogen that these chemical fertilizers and pesticides add to your food. So we're getting an overload of synthetic estrogen. And we also get that from the plastics, which infuse our water bottles and things like that. So it throws off your hormones substantially. And when you get low testosterone, you can get severe depression. And if you have low progesterone, you can get insomnia. So we have a world, and this is a worldwide phenomenon, but the US tends to have more severe cases because the FDA is not regulating this. In fact, they're allowing 50 times more glyphosate in our food than they did before, I think it was 1996. So since about 1996, they've increased the use of this by like 50%, the glyphosate, and they've also allowed more of it in our food. And so it's really a problem.
As you were talking, I was making a mental note. So as this, what I would call imposter protein enzyme that's coming in, and it becomes glucosamine, right?
Well,
or it mimics the characteristics.
It mimics glycine.
Glycine, thank you. So, number one, I'm gathering it must have an accumulative effect. And if it does, then this would then lead to 2 of the constant reoccurring cancers, liver and pancreatic.
Yeah, well, and lymphoma is one of the most prevalent that it causes. But, well, you know, like when we talked about cancer, I mentioned there was a Dr. P-O-P-P, who has been researching DNA and how when food goes into our DNA, if it's harmonious and healthy, it causes your DNA to heal itself. But if it's fractured or scattered, it causes your DNA to make cancer cells. Well, all of these synthetic, artificial, and toxic chemicals all go into your DNA in a fractured, scattered way. So those are not harmonious from what his research shows. And there's even a huge difference between just the quality of the food. So, you know, the quality of a chicken raised in a healthy environment with fresh air and sunshine in a humane way is totally different going into your DNA cells comparatively than a chicken who's raised without sunshine, without fresh air, given artificial hormones, antibiotics. And so, you know, what I've found is it really comes down to quality.
Yeah. All right, so let's break this down into.
So I know it sounds complicated, but it's really a lot easier, I think, than people think.
I think it is too. And this is how I look at this. We're an enlightened group. I mean, we truly are an enclave that is not the norm of modern day society. And the vast majority of modern day society is immersed into what I call this. It's almost like a Soylent Green scenario. I swear it is.
No.
I mean, I'm seeing Charleston Heston here, you know, because when you look in the cities, the inner cities and the densely populated cities, the food distribution system is virtually almost 60, 70, maybe even greater percent processed foods of virtually of all kinds.
Right.
I mean, so you've got literally, if not hundreds of millions of people each day continuing to consume this stuff. Well, there's no wonder we're seeing this explosion of not only diabetes, but as you said, lymphoid cancers. I mean, and it just goes on and on and on.
Well, and Dr. Sinoff from MIT, she's been really focusing on autism. And since this glyphosate is water soluble, what it is able to do is usually your body can surround toxins with some fat and protect you from them. But a water soluble one, you can't. And so what it does is it passes the brain blood barrier, and it can get in your brain. It can get in all of your tissues. And so this is one of the things that makes it so harmful. But she is saying that the autism is actually looks like it is glyphosate toxicity. And she's saying if we don't do anything about this, it could be 1 in 2 children by 2025. 1 in 2 children with
autism. And I guess here, and I'm projecting out into the future. I mean, I don't believe I'll be here in the next 100 years. I don't think I'd want to be. But what I'm thinking, I just read an article in Physicians Daily talking about the tsunami of baby boomers and Alzheimer's dementia, and how the baby boomers are going to redefine what Alzheimer's is. But when you're talking about autism, I wonder if we're going to see a correlation between autism and early dementia.
Well, she sees that definite correlation because it is affecting people's brains. It crosses that brain-blood barrier. She sees a very direct correlation also with MS. So what this glyphosate does is it affects certain enzymes in our body. And so we have a myelin sheath that protects a lot of our nerve cells. And what this glyphosate does, acting like the glycine, and it's in just about every cell in our body. In fact, 25% of our body's collagen. Well, yeah. It's a triple helix. And so every third protein in collagen is this glycine. So you're replacing it with this glyphosate, which is mimicking it, taking out the flexibility and the hydration of it because it can't hold water. So, look at the heart disease, the blood vessels aren't being flexible. Well, it's the same. Alzheimer's is like diabetes of the brain. So the brain's not able to access the glucose in the bloodstream. And so, things like coconut oil, you can eat things like coconut oil, which has ketones in it, which allows the brain to access the glucose in the bloodstream and feed it. But what I think what's happening is this glyphosate, which is brittle and not flexible, it's not able to protect the myelin sheath. So it's destroying that sheath that protects our nerves from this. And that is the brain to the spinal column. And so large increase in MS, things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autism. I've been working with more and more families that their children have had seizures. Well, 1 in 20 children now have seizures. And so a lot of it is just cleaning up their diet, having them eat organic food that is grown in a sustainable way where the soil has the healthy bacteria. What we need is this healthy bacteria in the soil. The glyphosate, when you put that on the soil, it kills all of the healthy bacteria. It kills the nutrients in the soil. It destroys the nutrients in the soil, like chromium. We need chromium to help get glucose into our muscles. Things like this glyphosate disrupts the sulfur being able to be used by your body. And so sulfur is the 3rd most prevalent element in our body, and we really need that. And so that's what carries oxygen into our cells. And if we're not getting that, we're not getting oxygen into our cells. And Dr. Otto Warburg proved that he got a Nobel Prize for finding that disease cannot thrive in an oxygenated environment. So with all of these chemicals preventing our body from absorbing the sulfur, then, we're seeing people having less oxygen in their cells. You're seeing, oxygen cafes and people.
I've seen that. And you can't help but not think with all of this. I mean, so if you're oxygenated deprived, obviously your cognitive abilities are going to be hampered. I mean, it's just a natural extension to that. I keep on thinking about the youth of today. Again, they're finding the 20-somethings with arteriosclerosis already. And if we begin to see the correlation with dementia, depression, wow, we're really stacking the deck against this generation.
Well, if you look at the brittleness of the glyphosate replacing the glycine protein, right? So it's not flexible anymore. So the arteries, they're getting a hard plaque in it. Also, one of the things this glyphosate does is it destroys the certain enzymes in your gut that help you detoxify. And so all of these other toxins in the environment actually affect you 1,000 times more because of that. And things like chlorine in our water, that is something that can, the first poison developed to kill people in warfare. And what that does is it will affect your body by knocking out your immune system. But also when you combine it with certain things, it will actually make your arteries start making plaque in them. So it will
fluoride. Well, that's what I think of. When you got chlorine,
so like cholesterol, it will affect cholesterol in a negative way, and it will start making a plaque in your arteries. So people don't realize that swimming in a swimming pool full of chlorine is actually going to affect you in an adverse way. You may love swimming, but I would say, try to find a natural spring or a river or the ocean or something near you if you love to swim, or maybe use something else in your pool like hydrogen peroxide, which is just as effective as chlorine, but it doesn't harm your health.
I wonder why they don't use that all. Well, maybe because it's good and it wouldn't harm us. I tell you, the more you get into this, you can't help but not have this perception. It's like, this is a freaking matrix that is set up against us, baby. I mean, Well,
it's funny. My father actually got his master's at Stanford in chemical engineering before he decided to become a lawyer. So, he was of that generation that embraced these chemicals and really thought that they were going to help us. And I think that was just a lot of misinformation, and they didn't have the long-term studies for that. And so I learned a lot of things just through my life, through people that I'm around that had a lot of information about chemicals and toxins and how they affect different aspects of our lives. And so I think that gives me kind of a different perspective on looking at different things like diabetes or cancer and how to be healthy. And so, I feel like sometimes my books, people call them the encyclopedias of health.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's
all encompassing, because they talk about not just the food and the lifestyle, but why? Because I think people are really smart. And I think once they really know why you want to avoid this or do that, then they can get on board. But if it's just they don't understand it, they're not going to want to change. And I think change is not always easy for people to embrace.
I have found that humanity resists change more than anything else. Nancy, I think about this, and there are alternatives. There are ways to reverse. But when you go in, for myself, I have 2 major grocery stores less than a mile away. And as I walk through there, I can't help but think all the time I think about this is that I am immersed in chemicals, whether it be preservatives, whether it be herbicides, whether it be insecticides, whether it be antibiotics in the meat. I mean, the water. They just did a study here that they just released by the Food and Drug Administration that says much of the bottled water Americans are buying, high levels of arsenic. And you and I talked about this the last time, the nice little chemical that comes off of plastic that permeates everything that's contained in it.
Right. Very harmful. And I really recommend people purifying their own water at home.
How can they do that?
And it's really a lot easier than you think. There's even inexpensive ones, like there's a zero water filter, ZERO. You can buy it for like $40 or something. And it's very effective in removing chlorine and fluoride. And I highly recommend getting one that removes the fluoride as well, because that's an accumulative poison that also causes severe problems. But do it yourself. Get a glass or a steel water bottle and don't go buy all that plastic water. And they don't even analyze a lot of these bottled waters. You don't know what's in them.
No.
They can have all kinds. They could have glyphosate in them for all you know. Get a reverse osmosis water filter for your house. That investment will save you a fortune.
Can they remove glyphosate from water? Can that be even separated?
Yes. In fact, Mike Adams, the health ranger, just did he's a really interesting Texas guy from Austin. And he buys his own analyzing equipment that's just, thousands and thousands of dollars, but he doesn't trust anybody. So he analyzes everything himself. So I think
wise man. That's all I got to say. That's a wise man.
But he just did an analysis of all the water purifiers, even the little glass ones and the pitcher ones, but the larger ones like the Berkey and the reverse osmosis. And he actually found that the zero water filter was extremely effective.
Really?
Yeah. And he
Excellent.
was surprised.
I mean, I'm sitting here going, wow, truth in advertising actually applies here.
And I've been telling people for years to get those, so I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah, like that felt good. Like at least you didn't.
One of the things he analyzes it for is the glyphosate.
Okay.
And that it removed all the glyphosate.
Now, can he do the gas analysis of the vegetables and other, bio mass? I guess is what I'm looking for. In
fact, he analyzes everything that he sells in his little store.
And this is Mike Ranger?
This is Mike Adams. He's the health ranger.
Health ranger. I love it. You've got to send me his link and I'll repost it.
He's great. He has a store and he analyzes everything he sells for, heavy metals or glyphosate. And I like him so much. I have links on my store and my website for him because I just think, we need to know what quality is. And in fact, he was one of the leading reasons that I believe Whole Foods ended up getting sold is because he was analyzing a lot of their organic greens for a while because he's in Austin and
I lived there for almost 7 years. Yeah.
He was finding heavy metals and things and toxins in the organic foods and Whole Foods market. And he confronted them with it for well over a year before he finally wrote a book and put the information out there on the internet because he was waiting for them to actually fix it. But
they're not.
They were actually bringing food in from China saying it was organic and it was filled with lots of heavy metals and different toxins. So
Nancy, do you know you can't get a blood test to test the heavy metals in your blood?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, try to ask your doctor to give you to get a blood test for heavy metals.
Well, I don't have a doctor.
Well, you may be able to find a private lab that does that, but every insurance company in the United States will not allow it. They will not cover it.
Interesting. Well, I will find a place where you can get analysis, and I'll get back.
Let me know. Yes, because I remember when I asked my doctor, and she looked at me and she says, "Well, why do you want to know that?" And so I sat down and I said, "Well, there's this thing called geoengineering," and I said it's been heavily debated how much aluminum oxide our bodies can actually absorb, and then the consequences of the other particulates that are associated with that.
Right. No, the heavy metals are a big problem. And in fact, our DNA, there are certain things that affect the way our DNA functions. And without certain things, it won't. And aluminum interferes with your DNA functioning. And a lack of mineral-rich salt is another one that is necessary for your DNA to function. So most people are on low salt diets or no salt diets, or they eat the white refined salt. And we talked about this a little bit in the cancer show, but these are critical for life. And in fact, the glyphosate, another one of the things it does is it demineralizes the body. So it chelates you of your minerals. So
and
these
aluminum does the same thing. It will actually not alkaline your body. What's the word I'm looking for?
Acidify.
Thank you. I mean, that's what I'm leaning on you for. Come on, but and so I see, my big concern is I'm trying to tell people is that there is this thing, with dementia, that it's happening everywhere. And I see the contributors. I mean, I think aluminum is one of them. And then I look at, all deodorant, antiperspirant has aluminum in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you think about foil on your food, and people are
cooking it.
Food in aluminum, and it's all of these things infuse our food. So some of the things that you can do to help detoxify or work with your lifestyle is get glass containers at home that you cook your food in. Ones that you can take from the freezer to the oven, so that you're not having to deal with plastic containers or the PBA plastics that are so high in synthetic estrogen. And get stainless steel cookware. Avoid
this estrogen, Nancy, not to stop, but this is a problem. I mean, it's I just read today, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, in a little section on lifestyle. It was the point that guys, the young men, the levels of the testosterone is so low now that they're finding, for instance, in Great Britain, they just did a study, virtually, and I was shocked at this statistic, over 50% of the young couples aren't having sex.
Yeah.
The males are more preoccupied with the video games. Literally, that's what they said.
It's a huge problem. And you see, and it happens in utero. So pregnant women who are super high in these synthetic estrogens from the conventional food, from the PBA plastics, it affects the fetus. So babies are born with these low testosterone levels. It affects the males way more than it does the females, and in a very negative way. And so you hear about all these transgender people today. Well, in my own personal opinion, they aren't really transgender. They just have a huge hormone imbalance, and they need to have their diet cleaned up, and they need to have their hormones regulated. And you can do this with compounded hormones that are made from yams. So you want to avoid any synthetic testosterone or synthetic progesterone or estrogen. If you're doing any kind of hormone regulations, you want to do it with a whole food type of supplement that your body actually knows how to handle. It's these synthetics that really throw our bodies off. And so if you are doing that and you want to clean up your diet, go organic, seriously, really clean up your water and do it at home, and don't buy the plastic waters. And that's easier than you think. And I talk about this to a great extent in my books. And I have huge chapters on water and food quality and different things like that. But also, stop cooking with aluminum, and clean up your body care products. So anything that goes on your skin goes straight to your bloodstream. So make sure you aren't, putting chemicals on your skin or your baby's skin. And it should be something, if you're putting it on your body, it should be something that you would actually probably eat. So
speaking of which, so the FDA comes out the beginning of the week and is now saying virtually all the sunscreens that they're going, well, your body is absorbing this certain chemical, but keep on doing it. What?
Okay.
What am I absorbing?
One more thing Glyphosate does is it cuts down on your vitamin D.
Oh, and that has been directly linked to cancer.
Oh, it's been directly linked to like 27 types of.
There you go. I was trying to be at least conservative, but I'm thinking to myself, and I went, "What? This is the world we live in." It's crazy.
They've gone at everybody over the last 30, 40 years to make them afraid of the sun, which in my own opinion is one of the most healing things possible. In fact, a new study showed that 77% of cancers would be prevented if people would get outside and get sunshine without sunscreen.
OMG.
Well, the sunscreen prevents so we make vitamin D. Our cholesterol transforms sunshine into vitamin D. Everybody's on these low cholesterol diets, right? They're trying to limit that. I read a study just yesterday that said people with low cholesterol are more likely to die young.
And it's just, it's like almost being in a pinball game. It's like, where do you find the neutrality in all this?
Well, what you have to do is just cut through all this misinformation. And I like to think my books do this.
Yes, they do. And they are available on, I've left the links.
But I just think we have been lied to by advertisers, by large corporations that just have a monetary, idea there that, profit is more valuable than ethical or moral behavior. And I just think that's wrong.
Oh, I don't know. I remember back in the 70s, and I don't remember it being this bad, this complicated. Maybe it's just the passage of time, but it did not seem. Food was food. I lived on a commune. I was a hippie. That's what they called us. But we grew our own food. I remember we actually got our water exactly right out of the creek that came. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, okay, so let's talk about some things people could actually do that's like really important. And there's this study in 1990s by a Dr. Anderson, and he worked on diabetes, and he took 25 type 1 diabetics and 25 type 2 diabetics. And all of these people were on insulin, but none of them were grossly obese. Okay. So this was a clinical setting, and it was very well documented. And he did the blood tests and all of the measurements of very, very clearly. And this was documented in the China study by T. Colin Campbell. A lot of these studies, it's very interesting, but they will take them off the internet. So you can't.
Surprise. Gee.
Like, I will have been looking at the study, and if I haven't downloaded it,
I've never heard of it.
But anyway, Dr. Anderson's study was great. So for 1 week, he took everybody and he put them on a diet that was recommended by the American Diabetes Association. So, kind of a get them all on the same page kind of thing, And then for the next 3 weeks after that, he put them on a plant-based vegetarian diet that was high in fiber, carbohydrates, but low in fats, or what we would call the bad fats, like trans fats, things like that. So they didn't think this was going to affect the type 1 diabetics at all, because type 1 diabetics, they've destroyed their organs to the point where they're not able to make insulin. But after only 3 weeks on this diet, and this wasn't even like an organic diet, or it didn't specify that it was organic or anything, but it was just a whole food, nutrient dense diet, and high in vegetables and fresh food. And so the type 1 diabetics, after only 3 weeks, were able to come off of 40% of their medication.
Wow.
Which really surprised them. And then with the type 2 diabetics, they were able, 24 of the 25 were able to come off of 100% of their medication. 100%. The one that wasn't able to do it had been on 36 units of insulin a day, and he was down to 8 units a day. And he continued on this diet at home for another 8 weeks and was able to completely get off of his medication. So if anybody doesn't believe that a plant-based diet is healing, just look at that study, and that is very telling. And so what I've come to understand, and I grew up in Texas on a very meat-based diet, barbecue, fried chicken, things like that.
Wow.
I was pre-diabetic in high school and all through my 20s until I started changing my diet and I became a vegetarian. And then all of a sudden my anemia went away and my diabetes went away. And my doctor was just like so surprised. And so anyway, what I found is that, and then Dr. Gublick, who works at the Cleveland Heart Clinic, he's part of the nutritional and dietetic part of that. He says it's not proteins we need, it's these complex amino acids that the body requires. So there was a study by the University of Southern California Medical School. They did a really great study with 6,000 people between the age of 50 and 65. And they found that people with a high creature intake diet, so animals of any kind, fish, chicken, dairy, eggs, anything from a creature. People with a high protein diet had a 70%, it's either 70 or 75% higher chance of dying of any disease.
Wow.
And 4 times more likely to die of cancer and 5 times more likely to die of diabetes. And if that was a diet high in plant-based protein, that was completely reversed.
So all those stories, as a kid when we were on the farm, my brother and I used to eat the horse feed. I mean, it was proline. It was molasses and oats, raw oats. It was probably one of the best stuff you could have. But so I look at this, and again, it gets back to this problem of dietary, and particularly when you look at the digestive part. People don't get the fiber that they need in their system.
Well, and the fiber is critical, but another thing people need to be aware of today, and another reason to buy organic, which is critical, is because a lot of these beans, lentils, grains, oats, barley, alfalfa, different seeds or nuts, these farmers are unknowingly using this glyphosate to like dry the crops so that they can harvest it quicker.
Oh,
And
great.
so,
Bastards.
so they just don't know any better. And it's so much of this is education. But when you're buying conventional food that's been dried with this glyphosate all over it, you're ingesting that glyphosate. So it's going to affect your protein and the cells in your body and how they communicate. And it's going to definitely affect your gut. And like gluten is a protein. And so you have this leaky gut from the glyphosate opening up, and affecting the enzymes in your gut bacteria, and it's causing this leaky gut. And you really need these healthy bacteria in order for your immune system to function properly. So there's a couple of things you can do. Dr. Zach Bush has developed what he calls Restore, and it's like a healthy gut bacteria supplement you can order off of his website. And also there's a fulvic acid, which is a super high antioxidant. It's kind of like concentrated compost, so it has good bacteria in it. One drop of that will actually have like 1 trillion antioxidants. And so you want antioxidant rich food, and you want these healthy bacteria, and you want to continually help your body detoxing, because the glyphosate can prevent these enzymes that it affects in your gut. It will affect the way you're able to detoxify from these chemicals that saturate our environment. So things like bentonite clay, which will bind with a lot of these toxic chemicals, can help pull them out of your body. And I have big chapters in my books on cleansing. And I actually started doing cleansing like 30 years ago when I started learning about it. And I just do it on a regular basis. But it's interesting. I've talked to people, and really smart people with PhDs, and they will be afraid to cleanse or detox. And they're afraid it's going to give them diarrhea or make them feel bad. And yet they'll live with these diseases or these
Crohn's and everything else.
And a lot of it is caused, like the autism that Dr. Seneff is seeing, is actually toxic chemicals in your body that is affecting you adversely. So you want to get those out of your body. You want to detox from that. And so part of it is if you eat antioxidant rich food, and the antioxidant is the color. So, deep, rich, beautiful organic vegetables that are vine and tree ripened. Those have natural anti-cancer components in them. And these antioxidants will go in the cell, and they'll help flush out these toxins or these acids. And it's the fiber in the food that will absorb them and get them out of your body. And so a really good detox cleanse will combine those two components in order to help your body detoxify more effectively. And it's really pretty easy. But if you just start eating whole, real, organic food, locally grown, tree and vine ripened, you're well on your way to helping your body heal, and then cleaning up your water so that it is healthier and it doesn't have the chlorine and fluoride in it. Then that's another part of it. So it's just kind of combining a few things that synergistically they all go together. And I really believe our body loves us, and it can do miraculous things if you just give it the right tools.
Well, the body, likes to stick around. I mean, that's what it does. And wow. All right. So this has been a full hour. It's sometimes it looks like you're in a chess game where it looks like, they're going to have you in checkmate in 3 moves. But then again, there is always a way out, right? Yes. There's an alternative. I mean, and you and I spoke about this last time we were together. Small steps. Small steps.
Right. Don't let it overwhelm you. Just, one thing at a time. Just try to start buying local organic food. Maybe your farmer can't afford to be certified organic, but Now, he may be doing the right thing, and your money's very, very valuable, and it is a vote. And when you start supporting those farmers that are protecting the environment and providing food that actually feeds your body and helps you heal, then, that's very valuable. And I think it's more valuable than, paying these thousands of dollars for pharmaceuticals that can have really serious side effects. In fact, there are some diabetes medications like Avandia. Is that? I think I wrote it down somewhere. Avandia, which causes heart disease and heart attacks. And a Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I know, who used to work with Stanford Medical School, he says there is no such thing as side effects. They are direct effects.
Direct effects. Now that's the first honesty I've heard on that.
Don't kid yourself about that. And then there are 3 diabetic medications that actually have been found very recently. And I posted this on some of my social media, but they actually cause genital gangrene and such a serious bacteria. So, and those are, highly used.
Amputation, folks.
So
that's what we're talking, freaking amputation.
Clean up your diet.
Well, and let's also, when we talk about diabetes, heart disease, and what have you, for men, it's one of the leading issues for erectile dysfunction. It just all cascades.
Arteries. Those are blood vessels. So that's the first sign of heart disease, because they're getting hard and they're not able to function properly. So it's that glycine protein that's getting brittle,
yep.
Right? And the collagen that's got that glycine protein in it, and it's not able to be supple, and it's and
one of the test guys who are going to be listening to this is that to test this, if you think you may be suspect or maybe in denial, I was taught this back when I lived in St. Louis years and years ago, decades ago. But my doctor simply said, you put around your penis the stamps that would form the circumference. If you have proper blood flow through the night, there will be an erection, and then you'll know that things are functioning properly. And it's one of those common sense things.
Okay.
Well, but we're talking about the population of our species. Right. This is what we're talking about. And this is a species issue.
Well, the genetically modified food shows that it causes sterility. So
yes.
Not in the first generation, definitely in the third generation, complete sterility. So another reason to avoid genetically modified food, and one's grown with glyphosate. So it's a combination, because it does cause sterility. And so you see people having trouble having children today, and so many children born with, but high fructose corn syrup. So a lot of this corn is grown with glyphosate. High fructose corn syrup is in a lot of processed foods, and it affects.
It's in all cereals.
It affects the way your pancreas makes insulin, and it affects your leptin hormone. And diabetes is really the misfunctioning and miscommunication between your insulin and your leptin hormone. And so it's critical to cut that out of your diet as well.
So before we get out of here, Nancy, the pancreas, it sounds to me, because I've heard that, many times that if the pancreas is damaged, there's virtually no way to regenerate that organ. I heard you early in our discussions that through some of the diet changes that there seems to be maybe hope for that.
I believe that that your body really can regenerate and reverse a lot of this. And I've seen all kinds of studies that show that to actually be true. But you have to give it the right tools and the right nutrients. And I think that is one of the major components. And so, buying foods that are, organic and grown with healthy bacteria and are nutrient dense. And then the water, we're 62 to 70 2%, 66 to 72% water. That is a critical component. And so getting clean water that doesn't have the chlorine and fluoride in it that affects you adversely, making sure it has the electrolytes in it, which are the mineral salts, which are the unrefined mineral-rich salts that we talked about in the last show. Those are absolutely critical for raising the pH of the water and helping you to absorb it more effectively. I see all these people who have these diseases and they're all drinking these carbonated drinks, and carbonated drinks actually take away your hydration. So drinking one carbonated drink is like taking away 10 glasses of water out of your body. It dehydrates you. And
Really? Wow.
Chewing gum, people chewing gum. You're telling your body you're going to digest, and you're making these digestive enzymes, which are very precious, and you're using them up without digesting any food. And I have more and more clients with cancer that are gum chewers and drink carbonated beverages. So, those are two things that people can do like immediately, is just, refrain.
Stop drinking the soda. It's bad for you, But yeah, wow. And I'm not a gum chewer, but I never occurred to me that in fact that is what you're doing. You're stimulating digestive enzymes that are not needed.
And you're wasting them.
You're wasting them.
Very precious.
Oh, well, Nancy, so much work to be done. So much work to done. Folks, go to the website, her website. I've left the links. Make sure you buy the books. I mean, it's an investment in your life. We all want to stay around. You want to stay around, right, Nancy, for a while?
I think so. I'd like to see my grandchildren grow up.
See? Yeah. And the best thing about when we continue on the path of life is that, well, I never thought I would make it this far. So it's all a bonus who'd have thought.
I was listening to the Beatles song the other day, and he's like, when I'm 64.
I know it. I heard the same song, and I'm going, well, okay. Here we are. It's like John Lennon said it in his David Cavett interview. He says, well, we made it past 30. Imagine that. Folks, go to her website. Make sure you get the books. It's for your own good health. Nancy, I hope that you'll come back.
I'd like to.
All right, good. I think this is a subject for, bettering our lifestyle. Longevity of life. You don't have to look like, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like it's my mission.
Well, you do well on it. Well, stay with me, Nancy. Thank you, everyone that's come in. Folks, we want to have a healthy life for all of this community. There's so many of us within this community that we know of loved ones that are suffering from diseases, some of them that are taking lives much too early. And if we can provide just, again, like Nancy said, take the small steps. It's the small things. We're going to be around longer. We can do better for our community and do better for ourselves as well. So let's think about that. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time. And in the interim, love yourselves. The best way to start. All right. Thanks, folks. We'll talk to you soon.